Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to dig into a really powerful, maybe even counterintuitive idea in education. What if the real key to a calm, focused classroom wasn't about having stricter rules? What if it all came down to predictability?
So let's just kick things off with this kind of radical idea. Most of us were taught that the very first thing you do is get those rules up on the wall. But what if that's starting in the completely wrong place? If it's not about the rules, then what is the real foundation?
It all starts right here, with safety. And we're not just talking about physical safety. We're talking about that deep psychological safety that lets a student finally lower their guard, take a few risks with their learning, and actually fire up the part of their brain that's meant for learning. This is the ground floor we're building on today.
All right, so in our first section, let's explore the two big forces that actually create that feeling of safety: predictability and trust. We're about to see why these two unsung heroes are way more powerful than any list of consequences you could ever write. Just think for a second about what students do when they're in a chaotic, unpredictable classroom. The source material uses this incredible phrase for it. They brace themselves to survive. They are literally on high alert all the time. And a kid who's bracing for impact, there's no way they can be open to learning.
Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. When you hear the word predictable, it's so easy for your brain to jump to words like boring or rigid or robotic, but that's a huge misconception. So let's get crystal clear on what we're really talking about here.
Look, predictability is not about being a robot or killing all the fun and spontaneity. Not at all. What it is about is creating a clear, stable structure. It means students know exactly what's expected of them, they can trust that your responses are going to be consistent, and they feel safe inside those familiar routines. This structure, it's the very thing that actually allows for creative and spontaneous learning to happen.
And this right here, this is the huge payoff. When students aren't constantly burning mental energy wondering what's around the corner, or if they're about to get yelled at, or which version of their teacher is going to show up today, well, a ton of brain power gets freed up. Instead of scanning for threats, their brains can finally, just focus on learning.
So why does this work so well? Well, it's not just some nice theory. It's actually rooted in neuroscience. Let's take a quick peek at what's happening inside a student's brain when it's dealing with a whole lot of uncertainty.
Think of it like a chain reaction. It all starts with inconsistency. Maybe an unclear rule, or a teacher who reacts emotionally one day, but not the next. That simple thing can activate the brain's threat system, pushing it right into survival mode. And you know what happens then? The part of the brain that's in charge of self-regulation and good choices, it starts to go offline. So what we see as defiance is often just a brain that literally can't regulate itself in that moment.
This is the quiet message that a predictable environment sends over and over again to a student's brain. It calms that threat response down. It's like this constant nonverbal reassurance that lets the thinking part of the brain stay in the driver's seat.
And that consistency is the absolute bedrock of trust. But here's a really crucial point. This kind of trust isn't just about being nice or warm and fuzzy. It's built on being reliable and fair, even when you're holding students accountable. They just need to know that you are a steady, predictable presence.
Now get this. This is how you dismantle power struggles before they even have a chance to start. When a student knows the expectation and the consequence way ahead of time, a correction stops feeling like a personal attack. It's no longer you versus them. It's just the natural, neutral result of a choice they made. The process does the teaching, not the emotion.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the why. Now it's time for the how. Let's get really practical and break down 4 concrete strategies you can start using right away to build this architecture of predictability in your own classroom.
First up, strategy number 1, and it's a big one. We have to stop assuming routines are just obvious. We need to teach them with the same care and intention we'd use for a math lesson. That means you model it, you have your students practice it, you give them feedback, and you revisit it whenever you need to. Treat it like a lesson, because it absolutely is one.
All right, strategy 2 is all about our own responses. Come on, we've all been there, we've all felt this frustration. But this kind of question, it's emotionally loaded, it's unpredictable, and it just immediately puts a student on the defensive. It makes the whole situation personal. Now contrast that with this. This is a reminder of our expectation. See? Same goal, but a totally different impact. It's calm, it's consistent, and it keeps the focus on the routine, not on the person. That is emotional predictability in action.
Strategy 3 is all about making the invisible visible. Things like daily agendas, visual timers, or posted instructions aren't just classroom decorations. They're super powerful tools that lower the mental effort for everybody. They answer that constant "what's next" question before students even have to ask, creating this steady sense of calm and clarity.
And finally, strategy 4, let students in on the secret. Just taking a minute to explain the why behind a routine, how it helps everyone learn better, or saves time for more fun stuff, builds so much buy-in and trust. It shows you respect their intelligence. They don't need to be in charge, but understanding the logic makes them feel like partners in the classroom.
All right, let's bring this all home. Let's look at how these two big ideas, trust and predictability, don't just exist side by side. They actually feed each other, creating this amazing virtuous cycle.
This is the engine. It's a beautiful, self-reinforcing loop. Your consistency in your actions and responses builds their trust in you. And as they trust you more, they lean into the predictable structures you created, which makes those structures even more effective. Each one just keeps making the other stronger.
And when that loop is really spinning, the results are so tangible. You'll see students managing their own behavior more often. You'll find that corrections feel less stressful for everyone. And the whole classroom just feels calmer and more focused, creating that space where real, deep learning can finally happen.
You know, this really sums it all up, doesn't it? It's not about clamping down harder or having more rules. It's about creating an environment where students can just exhale, where they know what to expect and feel safe enough to just be themselves. So here's the ultimate takeaway. A predictable classroom isn't a limited one. It's a liberated one. By providing this solid foundation of safety and trust, what you're really doing is unlocking your students' incredible potential to learn, to grow, and to thrive.
And that brings us to our final thought. As you think about everything we've talked about today, I'd invite you to ask yourself this one question. Maybe it's that first 5 minutes of class, or a messy transition between activities, or even just how you respond to call-outs. Where could one small shift toward more predictability make the biggest difference for everyone, including you? Thanks so much for joining us.